credit that gets the best and most enthusiastic response is people ask me what I've written. I say, well, Star Trek Next Generation, Quantum Leap, Smurfs. They usually go, Smurfs? Wow, that was such a great show. And all of my allegedly stellar credits they don't care about too much. Written for a lot of different types of TV shows. I wrote for the animated Spider-Man when it was on Fox. I did a 2-part thing called Shriek of the Vulture, which had the Vulture. You're shaking your head yes and smiling. Okay. Do you remember that?
I remember it vaguely. I remember it being a movie.
Exactly. That's a great answer. Very good. Thank you. You will succeed in show business. That's important to do that kind of stuff. All of us in show business, unfortunately, have very big egos. So if you can say things like, I remember it was a good one, that's step one to doing well in show business. It was actually a 2-part season ender, and at the end of it, I think Mary Jane allegedly was about to find her lost father, so it ended on a big note. Oh, I see other people shaking their heads. Wow, cool. Was it a good one? Thank you so much. Okay, what else have I written for? 3 episodes of ThunderCats. I'm telling you this not to brag, just to let you know what my background is, because in a few minutes we're going to talk about how to get into show business, how to be a screenwriter, actor, etc., etc. So I want you to know what my background is so you can hopefully talk to me about either animation or live action or whatever areas might interest you. I've done a lot of different types of writing. I've done comedy writing, I've done animation, I've done action writing, Star Trek Next Generation, sci-fi, Fame, dramatic, Quantum Leap I wrote for, which is sci-fi, fiction, non-fiction. It's hard for me to say I like X type of writing better than Y. What I really like is the diversity of going back and forth between different types of writing. There's no type of writing I especially like more than another. What I do like most is when a script is going well and I know it's going to be going well. What I dislike is when a script is going adequately and I know it's going to end up adequate. So it's the script and the characters that are a function of what I like the best, more so than the type of script.
Okay.
I wrote 3 episodes of ThunderCats, and the thing that I did that I thought was important and even fun for me, if it took me, let's say, a week to write a ThunderCats script, I would literally not answer the phone so I could focus on nothing but ThunderCats, not pick up my mail. I had a writing shirt which I would wear the whole time I was writing the script, and I would not change it. And that helped me focus. I also had pictures of the different ThunderCats, drawings of them, Lion-O, Snarf, etc., the airplane or whatever it was that they wrote in. It might have been called the Thunder Strike. So those were all over my apartment. So everywhere I looked was ThunderCats. I'd watch ThunderCats videos. Nothing intruded on that world of ThunderCats. No phone calls, no mail. And the scripts came out, I think, pretty well. And I like doing that because it's kind of cool to go into a whole different world. I was in the world of ThunderCats for the time I was writing that. And when you're writing a character, in your mind, you're the character. So I was Lion-O, I was Snarf, I was in their world for the time I wrote the script. When I wrote Spider-Man, in effect, I was in Spider-Man's head, I was in the Lizard's head when I was writing that character, and I was in Spider-Man's world. So one of the cool things about being a writer is, if you do it a certain way, you enter the world of the characters you're writing for. For a while, I was the brain of Droopy. It's an interesting brain to be in. It's a very funny character, very interesting character, but to be in that world, I think is really cool, because most people are only in the real world. It's interesting to go into unreal worlds. And if you want to get philosophical about it, how do you know this is the real world?
a good way to put it.
Maybe this is philosophically, you want to get cosmic about it, you want to get strange about it. Maybe this particular world, and you and I, do not exist, and it's just figments of somebody or something's imagination.
Yeah.
Maybe the real world is actually Droopy's world.
Or Spider-Man.
Or Spider-Man's.
ThunderCats, yeah.
Or
That's
all of them. So
an
it's
interesting
possible.
way to look at it,
It's
yeah.
possible, but as a writer, you get to go into all of these worlds, and that's incredibly cool. And you get to do it, and you're admired for it, and people go, hey, that's cool, instead of whatever the opposite of admired might be. And there are some scenes, I remember occasionally I would write scenes just by turning on the tape recorder and pretending I was the characters in the scenes and just talking into the tape recorder. So you're literally the characters. Well, not literally, but almost the characters. Another thing, characters are very important. If you understand a character well enough, in a way, not literally, but in a way the character's almost sitting on your shoulder and telling you what they would do, what they would say. My favorite writers, Mark Twain. I loved Mark Twain. I loved the fact that he had a very diverse group of things that he wrote for. He wrote travel, he wrote very heavy, serious things. He wrote a short story called The Mysterious Stranger. If you really want to get some out there, cosmic, strange philosophy, short story, Mysterious Stranger. At the end of that short story by Mark Twain, you will be reeling for about an hour and a half until you get your brain back. Very heavy duty, very pessimistic. He wrote upbeat stuff, he wrote funny stuff, he wrote short stories, he wrote novels. So Mark Twain, even his love letters to his wife were phenomenal. I loved him because he was a phenomenal writer in many different types of writing. In terms of science fiction, I don't really think of a piece of science fiction. I think of it as a great story with fascinating characters, great themes, with some science elements that might be fictitious thrown on it. You know, the key things in any story are character, theme, structure. The science or the science fiction is just frosting on the cake. Certainly I like Bradbury, certainly I love Rod Serling, but if you look at the best Star Trek Next Generation, I think the best episode of any Star Trek permutation was an episode called The Inner Light.
I don't know if what do you know what season that one was in?
Don't remember the season, but the basic idea was Picard had an imaginary family. It's very moving, very dramatic piece, and there were no huge battle scenes, no expensive special effects. It was all about character, family, and universal theme, and it was powerful. I believe a lot of people who worked on the show really loved that episode also. So again, what I'm saying in a long-winded way is any story is predominantly and mainly about character, universal theme, and connecting with the audience. The most powerful work is not about the battles between the Klingons and whoever. It's about human beings.
Interaction.
It's about connecting from the writer's heart and soul to the viewer's heart and soul, and hopefully telling them something that might be helpful to their lives. So, I saw a science fiction piece called Looper, L-O-O-P-E-R.
Yep, that's a good one.
I loved it. And it had some sci-fi stuff going on, time travel, but it was really about the character and the themes.
Yeah, really.
I saw another sci-fi movie that I loved recently, Lucy. It's about the character and universal themes. One of the themes is, what is life really about? I'm fascinated by that. You got me interested.
Yeah.
The fact that there's guns and shooting, well, that's kind of interesting too. But after that movie, I just sat there for about 10 minutes or so, and I said, wow, that was very fascinating stuff. The writer went into, what is life really about? Why do we exist? And not only did he go into those topics, but he got what I thought were some correct answers. So if you're going to give me correct answers to why do we exist as human beings, you got me fascinated. You have to be jazzed about what you're getting involved in, I think, as a writer. But the best episodes of Next Generation were about character. And the character is really, in a way, the viewer. So Picard is your surrogate, in a way, when he deals with family. And when you are Picard, in a way, as a viewer, and you learn something about family, you learn about friendship, you learn about connections with other human beings, that's powerful. You know, when I first met Gene Roddenberry, you know, I said to him, I think Star Trek's a great property. I think it's terrific because you get the ability to do philosophical stories that can teach people about themselves and maybe make their life a little better. And he said, yep, that's what the show's about. That's what we want to do. But he said, don't forget, Sandy, throw in the phaser battles, throw in the ships exploding to keep people interested. And he was absolutely right. If you want to get all philosophical, people will tune you out. So you got to have some fun battles and special effects going on too. When an idea like Measure of Man, which was an all-character episode, was pitched, golden. That's golden. The Inner Light, all about character and human beings and how they create families, that's golden. So anybody who wants to pitch to a show, characters, 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 and connect with the audience. I had a teacher in undergraduate school who was a literature teacher who said, if you are not connecting with the audience as a writer, you're probably not doing a good job. And I absolutely agree with that. It was very interesting. I got a phone call at home from somebody in Malaysia. And at the time, I knew close to nothing about Malaysia. They said, Sandy, we know your credits, you know what you've written for. We would like you to come to Malaysia to teach some network writers how to write. And I thought to myself, is this a prank? What is this? And I didn't know anything much about Malaysia. Also, when he said, I want you to teach network writers how to write, I thought, well, if they're network writers, they should know how to write. What I found out was they were starting a new network in Malaysia, and I really did not want to go because it just seemed too unusual to me. How did the guy get my phone number at home, et cetera, et cetera. So I really didn't want to go. So what I did was I said, look, within the next 24 hours, if you wire me $10,000 a week for 3 weeks, I'll go to Malaysia, send me a contract that says first-class airfare on Air Malaysia with a great room at your best hotel, I'll go. And I thought that would be the end of it. Within a few hours, I had $30,000 in my bank account, and I was on my way to Malaysia.
That's awesome. Wow.
And it was very interesting. You know, when I got to the hotel, I don't know how the guy knew my name, but the doorman opened the door to my car. They gave me a driver in a car. Said, Mr. Freeze, welcome. Welcome, Mr. Freeze. I said, you could call me Sandy. Yes, Mr. Sandy. Yes, Mr. Sandy. So it was a very different culture. I learned a lot about Malaysia in the 3 weeks I worked there. I had a great time. It was a lot of fun. Incredibly unique kind of culture. I did it, and that was the farthest I ever went for writing, Malaysia.
Wow.
Yeah, the food there was, desserts, very gelatinous, like everything's kind of a gelatin kind of dessert. People were very, very nice, to the point of being so nice that they made me uncomfortable. What's going on here?
Personal space, things like that? Or
Well,
no?
they just, like, everybody called me, either Mr. Freeze, Mr. Freeze, Mr. Sandy, Mr. Sandy, and they almost bow to you. So that was a little uncomfortable. But in general, the people were great. The writers I was teaching were great, and they were starting a brand new network. So that's why I had to teach the writers how to write. They were network writers who had no experience before. So they were like in the very beginning. They started the network, went well. After 3 weeks, I left Malaysia, and it was a very interesting, fun experience. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I give people is get into a career you will enjoy. Otherwise, you're in trouble. If you're in a career for 20, 30, 40 years that you don't enjoy, you will reach the end of your life and say, my gosh, I really messed up my life. What's the most difficult part of being a writer in Hollywood? That's a great question. Let me think for a second or two. That's a really good question. Okay, one thing I remember being difficult at the very beginning of my career, I had to pitch to shows I was not enthusiastic about because I was at the beginning of my career. Shows like animated Hello Kitty, shows like animated Little Clowns of Happy Town, and pitching to shows you're not enthusiastic about is hard. Getting rejected by those shows, which I did, is even harder. So I was rejected by Hello Kitty when I pitched, and I was rejected by Little Clowns of Happy Town. So the rejection can be hard. It's difficult when you get stuck for a story idea or a scene, what's going to happen in this scene, and you can't figure out a way to make the scene work. Professional writers usually have writer friends that they can bounce ideas back and forth with, so that's how you could solve it. I guess those are the two things that come to mind in terms of difficulty. But any career you go into, there will be difficulties, and you just have to deal with them as effectively as you can. Best part of being a writer in Hollywood. Working with people like Gene Roddenberry and Joe Barbera, people of that caliber were just phenomenal because they have brains that are very unique. A Gene Roddenberry brain, a Joe Barbera brain is a rare, wonderful, fascinating thing to interact with, and to be able to interact with those kinds of brains, those kind of people, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's the kind of thing you dreamed of doing when you were a kid. It sort of gives you self-validation as a human being. Oh yes, I worked with Mr. Barbera, I worked with Mr. Roddenberry, I called him Gene, but now I'll call him Mr. I guess I'm a worthwhile human being now. Another really nice thing is, this is very cool, watching your script being shot. I remember going on Star Trek sets, the Next Generation sets, which were very cool sets, amazingly cool sets, and watching actors like Patrick Stewart do my lines. That's like a real cool, jazzy thing. I remember there's a Will Wheaton episode that I remember writing and then seeing performed on a very cool jazzy soundstage with cool special effects and cool sets. And I remember going, I wrote that to myself. I would never say that out loud because it sounds too hokey. But what you say to yourself is, hey, I wrote that. Now the actor's saying the lines. Just seeing that happen on the stage, on the sound stage, and then on the screen is phenomenal. That's amazing. So the people were fun. Watching your stuff come to life is fun. Animation, writing the animation and then seeing animated is amazing. Pursue your dreams. The alternative route is, as I mentioned before, you're 120 years old, you're gumming down your tuna fish sandwich, you're about to die, you look back at your life and you go, here I am about to die. I did not pursue my dreams. I really messed up this life. Oh man, now I'm gonna die. You do not want that to happen. What you want to happen is you want to be 120 years old, about to die, gumming down your same tuna sandwich and going, wow, I went after my dreams. That was a nice life. And either I achieved my dreams, how cool was that? Or I gave it my best effort. Now I could die kind of happy. And boy, this tuna fish sandwich tastes good. My grandmother used to say, please and thank you are the magic words. Always be polite. Always be genuinely polite. Always do the best you can.